Hello everybody, this is Bill McFadden from TonePure.com, and in this video we're going to take a look at the modes, and I wrote a cue in the PDF, the audio, as well as the Cubase MIDI file, or a MIDI file in general. It'll work for any DAW. Will be available in the description below. So let's go ahead and listen to the cue, which is emphasizing the Dorian mode. So here we see the melody and the accompaniment. And notice we start out in D Dorian, we transition to C Mixolydian, back to D Dorian, G Mixolydian. Then we get into E flat Lydian, and F Mixolydian, so another scale. Then back to E flat Lydian and Mixolydian with flat 2, flat 6. And then we get back into the Dorian, and then it repeats the 8 measures. And then the orchestration of measures 9 through 16, we add a couple of elements to the orchestration to make it a little more full, a little counter melody with the horns. So let's go ahead now and take a look at the Dorian mode. And everybody starts out with or just about everybody, starts out with the D, starting with the D, and then they just go through all the white keys. And that is D Dorian. But it begs the question, what about C Dorian or F Dorian? Well, if you know the D scale, you realize, here's the D scale. So the Dorian is actually the minor third. So the major third becomes the minor third. And the 7th becomes the minor 7th instead of the major 7th, or the minor 7th is also referred to as the dominant 7th. Now, here's the key to not only the Dorian mode, but any of the modes. For example, the first mode, if you start on the white keys on C, is your major mode, referred to as the Ionian mode. If you start on D, we get the Dorian. If you start on E, you get the Phrygian. And if you start on F, you get the Lydian. If you start on G, you get the Mixolydian. And then if you start on A, you get the Aeolen, which is also referred to as the natural minor. And then if you start on B, you get the Locrian. So, back to the original question, how do I get the Dorian mode in another key? Well, you take a look. We see the Dorian mode we're playing has no sharps or flats. So basically we're using the signature of key, the signature of C major. No sharps, no flats. And we're actually doing that for all of the modes. When we went to the, starting with E, there were no sharps or flats. We're basically using the key signature of C. So for the Dorian mode, I noticed the relationship between the note D and the note C is a whole step or 2 half steps. So if I go 1 half step, 2 half steps, I get to C. So the question will always be, how many half steps do I go to get to C? So in this case, from D, we go 2 half steps to get to C. So if I want to know what the key for, say, C Dorian is, I go 2 half steps, which gives me a B flat, and the key of B flat actually has 2 flats, B flat and E flat. So basically C Dorian will have those same 2 flats. So now we have C Dorian. So in order to travel through the modes, you do need to be familiar with the major scales. So let's take a look at another one. Let's say G. Let's figure out what G Dorian is. So again, you start with the G, you go, and then we've already established for Dorian, we go 2 half steps below the note to find the key. So for G Dorian, the key will be the same as the key of F. And F, as you may know, has 1 flat. So if we use that 1 flat, starting with G, we now have G Dorian. How about A Dorian? Okay, so if I want to find out what key signature to use for A Dorian, I go down 2 half steps. So I would use the key signature of G. So 1 sharp. So I start with A. I remember I have just the 1 sharp, F sharp. And there you have A Dorian. So it's the same for all the other keys, including the black keys. So if I want to know what, say, D flat Dorian is, I would go down 2 half steps. And then in this case, you have 5 sharps. So as you see, it becomes a little challenging. So here we have our 5 sharps. One way to view this is, what are the white notes in the scale of B? We have B and E, and all the rest of the notes are black notes. So again, if we're looking at D flat Dorian, we know it's going to have the same key signature as B. And in particular, it's going to have the notes B and E and the black notes. So if I start here and just do all the black notes, B and E, there you have D flat Dorian or C sharp Dorian, depending on how you want to look at it. So you can see you can get as complex as you want. But again, it goes back to knowing your scales, your C scale, your D scale, your E scale, which has 4 sharps, your F scale, which has 1 flat, your G scale, which has 1 sharp, your A scale, which has 3 sharps, and then your B scale, which has 5 sharps. And then you can do the black keys, starting with, say, D flat or C sharp. And in the scale of C sharp, notice you have all black keys except F and C. And then for E flat, we have 3 flats. And then for F sharp, so actually, notice we have all black keys, except for 2 notes, B and F. And then for A flat, we have 4 flats. And then for B flat, an easier one, we only have 2 flats. So that's all of your scales. And if you know all those scales, that will allow you to figure out what the various modes are in all of the scales, actually. And these, we're talking about modes from the major scale. Okay, so again, the PDF of the piece will be available in the description below, as well as the MIDI file for the cue that we just played, as well as the MP3 of the recording. So we'll stop here for now, and we'll continue in the next video with the orchestration. How do we orchestrate it? We started with just a melody and chords, but how do you then get into the orchestration? Where do you get, why do you bring in these strings, and what techniques are you using to bring them in? And then we have percussion, and we have horns coming in, and another percussion, the triangle. So how does that all fit into the original, basically, lead sheet of a melody with chords? So Bill McFadden, signing off from tonepure.com.